in work and school, for example, that is your target samples, and then you found out that these women who are working and also studying are experiencing a high level of anxiety. So from that measure, we can make an inferences that those who are working, working women and studying also are experiencing anxiety. So, kung valid yung test natin, we can make an inferences out of it na ito basta mga nagtatrabahong babae at nag-aaral, mataas ang level ng anxiety. So that's what we are talking about, what we pertain to validity, So the so-called validation, it is the process of gathering and evaluating evidence about validity. How are we going to establish the validity of the test? So that's the question. So sometimes it is the validity of the test is an interplay between the role of the developer or the test developer and the test user. So in what case, so it is your responsibility as a test developer to supply validity evidence in the test manual, or once you do a test, so you need to ensure that the test is valid, so that as you develop the test manual, you can specify there, okay, the amount of validity that the test has, So, parang, di ba, pag nagre-research kayo, if you're doing a research study, then, di ba, there is a portion there in the methodology, which is the instrument, data instrument, So, that is a particular portion of the methodology wherein you're going to discuss the validity and reliability of the questionnaire or the instrument that you will be using on your test. So same goes with the test manual, that there should be a specific portion in the test manual that talks about the validity of the test. Otherwise, bakit bibilhin yung test mo kung hindi naka-specify doon or walang proof na valid yon? So parang it will just be a waste of money kung bibili ka ng test na hindi valid. Okay? And then on the part of the test users naman is to conduct their own validation studies with their own group of test takers, So sometimes, yung gaya nyo, you will be a test users, you need to make your own validation. Even if the test itself is valid, you need to do a validation process pa rin. Kasi, di ba, when we, dito pumapasok ang tinatawag na local validation studies, let us say that you got a questionnaire, let us say an emotional intelligence scale na nakita mo, but this EI scale or emotional intelligence scale has been validated in the Western community or the Western country. Ngayon, gusto mo makita if this test is also applicable applicable for the use here in the Philippine setting or in the Asian setting. So you can do a local validation. I-administer mo yun, and then you need to measure also the validity of the test para masabi natin na valid yung test in the context of Asians. Let us say, for example, you are researching about ethnic groups, and then you come up with this review of related literature na may questionnaire, but the questionnaire was then developed and validated somewhere in Kenya or in South Africa, for example. And then, gusto mo siyang gamitin sa mga dumagats, for example, because that will be your sample, representative sample, or your respondents, or for example, dumagats or agtas. You need to do a local validation. Unang-una, tatagalogin mo yon kasi maybe the questionnaire was written in English language, so therefore, tatagalogin mo siya. If as much as possible, you need to translate it into dumagat language or into an Agta language so that the representative sample will be able to discriminate. May papalitan po ba ako sa item? Wala. You are just going to tawag dito to transfer it to the local dialect. So dahil transfer mo siya into local dialect, you need to do a local validation. Another example is you are doing an assessment of the comprehension of the students, ano, and then the material that you're going to use is using a grade norm. And it was validated in US. Nakita mo, bakit masyadong mataas naman yung expected level of comprehension for a grade 4 student. Tapos, nung pumunta ka naman dito sa Pilipinas, the expected level of comprehension for a grade 4 student is ganito lang, average lang talaga. Pero kung i-compare mo siya dun sa sa grade norm ng US, masyadong mataas. So, in that manner, or in that case rather, you need to do a local validation for you to establish or to identify what norm are you going to use. So, yun po yung purpose why we are doing a local validation. Lalo na pag when you are doing a research, ano, yung mga fourth year ngayon, ano, some of them are able to get or to adopt ang dito yung mga questionnaires with public domain. So, ito yung pwedeng gamitin, ano? But then, ang problem doon is that this test are the norms of this test are were based on the Western communities, ano. So, sabi ko sa kanila, before you use that, since though it's valid, ano, before you use that, you should do a local validation to see on how much will be the level of discrimination of your target participants. Ano. So, yung mga ganun po. Like, one group is dealing with the emotional intelligence of the nurses, and the original EI version was 69 items. Sabi ko sa kanila, if you're going to administer that to a nurse who are so much busy with their work, since they are frontliners, malaki yung chance that they will be having this test acquiescence. So, hula-hulaan lang nila yung sagot doon. So, taking is so high and the amount of error is so high on that manner. So, I asked them to make a shortened version. And when you do a shortened version of an original test, you need to do a local validation. Ang tanong, sir, paano po namin siya i-validate? Ay, na-shorten po yung version. It's just like a convergent validity. You're going to administer the original version, you're going to administer the shortened version, and you find the correlation. If the correlation is high, at least 0.8 and above, the shortened version is valid also. Just like, it means that it's just like the original. It's a redundancy of the original version, and that's so good. Okay. So, yung ganun po, that's how you're going to do a local validation. Ano. So, sa nurse po ba rin namin i-validate? Hindi. Anyone is possessing an emotional intelligence. So, therefore, anyone can take that emotional intelligence, but you need to give them a clause or kumbaga an advice that they will be answering two sets of tests. One is longer version and the other one is a shorter version. At titingnan mo kung mataas ba yung relationship ng dalawang test, the original version and the shorter version. And that's part of the local validation technique. Are you following, guys?
Opo.
Yes po.
Yes po. Yes, sir.
Okay, hopefully. Okay, so yun nga, again, of course, the language, the content of the test must be validated, using the local norm. Okay, moving on is so one-way measurement specialists have traditionally conceptualized validity according to three categories, or the so-called Criterion view. Originally, we have three types of validity: the content validity, the criterion related, and the construct validity. So, way before, during the time of Urbani and Anastasia and Urbina, and yung mga old authors ng psychological assessment, they have Groth and Marnati, yung mga dating authors ng psych assessment, then, kumbaga, they come up with this tree, until such time that during the time of when Kaplan and Zacuso together with Cohen and Swerdick had this additional type of validation process or types of validity measure na dagdagan na. Ano? But before, it was just the Trinitarian view. So ito lang tatlo yon: content, criterion, and construct. So sinasabi that among all of these, it's the construct validity that must be established. Because pag sinabi mong you are able to establish the construct validity, then the criterion and the content validity follows. Kasi ibig sabihin, that particular test used to measure a particular construct. So it means that the test measure what it intends to measure. If the test is a measure of anxiety, then the construct of the test must be for anxiety. Ano, so ibig sabihin nun, if you establish the construct validity of that anxiety test, then you are also able to achieve its content and criterion related validity. Okay, for a while charge lang ako. Nakakasunod.
Yes po.
Yes po.
Moving on is there are three approaches in assessing the validity. The first one is that you need to scrutinize the test content. So in scrutinizing the test content, you are doing the so-called content validity. In scrutinizing the test content, you will be having it one by one, item per item, to see if the construction of the test is accurate, to see if the language or the words being used is appropriate. So, yun yung mga kino-consider natin when we are doing this content validity measure. Ano? So, you need to scrutinize items. So, as with the choices and the distractors, if there will be, in this manner, in doing the content validity. For the second one is that you need to relate scores obtained on a test to other test scores or other measures. So this talks about a criterion-related validity. So ito po yung sinasabi natin doon, na meron tayong tinatawag kasing criterion-related validity. Na whether it is a predictor or concurrent validity, may mga ganun po tayong tinatawag. So in this case, you need to see the relationship of an obtained score to another construct or to a predictor. Let us say you are doing an ability test or you had an ability test, So, asan mo siya pwedeng i-compare na construct? Perhaps you can compare it with the grades or with the GWA of that particular person. So in that manner, you are doing this criterion-related validity. And of course, the last one is that you need to execute a comprehensive analysis of how scores on the test relate to another test scores and measures. Like for example, you are doing now a convergent validity, or it can either be a divergent validity. So in that case, you are having an analysis now of these test scores as compared with the other scores. So, we will be discussing that one by one. Ano ba yung pinagsasasabi ni Sir na concurrent, predictive, convergent, and divergent validity? So, those are subclasses, types of validity. Okay, so we will be discussing that one by one, and I'll be giving you examples for you to have a picture of how it is being done. Okay, another thing is that the use of the theoretical framework in order for you to understand the construct. So this is under the construct validity. Let us say, for example, you are developing a theory-based test. When you say theory-based test, this is a test anchored to a particular theory. Example, you are trying to develop a self-esteem scale. And this self-esteem scale is based on psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud. or any other contemporary psychoanalysis, whether it is the work of Melanie Klein or kung sino pa man na psychoanalysis, Eric Erikson, for example. So, let us say self-esteem, yung pinag-aaralan mo, and naka-anchor ka sa psychoanalysis. So, all the questions must be dealing on the tenets and principles of psychoanalysis. You will not be asking questions pertaining to behavior because it is not under psychoanalysis. You are not going to ask questions pertaining to the now because that's the purpose of, that's under what? The here and now is a work of a what? A gestalt. It is also a work of a phenomenological point of view, but not an psychoanalytic one. Ano? So, ganun po. So, ibig sabihin, the framework of the construct will be the theory. And in order to analyze each item, you're going to refer back again to the theory that you used. Ano, just like in research, parang when you are doing a research, you have the so-called theoretical framework. Right? And this theoretical framework kaya nga framework, di ba? It serves as the backbone of the research. And I don't know baka pinapalampas lang kayo nung mga teacher nyo siguro during your senior high school days or junior high school days, But in real sense, the theoretical framework must be, as I mentioned that in field methods, it must be reflecting throughout the study. Just like, the research design must be reflecting throughout the study. In a quantitative research, the theoretical framework must be reflecting from the introduction up to the recommendation. Let us say that you are using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as your theoretical framework in the research that you are doing. So, ibig sabihin, this theory must also reflect on the questionnaire. Pero minsan, halimbawa, sabihin ng bata na nagde-defend, they are in their defense, tapos sasabihin, we are using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Ganyan. Tapos yung tinignan mo yung questionnaire, there's none of the item reflecting or pertaining to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So technically, the study is wrong. Nasaan doon ang theory? Hindi siya nagre-reflect sa saan? Hindi siya nagre-reflect dun sa questionnaire mismo. Paano mo nasabi na Maslow's hierarchy of needs and theoretical framework mo ay doon sa mga naging tanong mo or in the data gathering, walang Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So technically, this study is a scrap. Basura yon. Mali. Diba? So that's how it should go. Same goes with this when you are developing the test and it is a theory-based one, or you use a theory, then the theory must be reflecting on all of the items of the test in order for you to ensure its construct validity. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes po. Yes, sir.
Sino yun? Bakit may sumisigaw? Okay, moving on. Is face validity. Okay, so when you say face validity, so this is an additional types of validity. It was described as the Rodney danger field of psychometric variable because it has received little attention. Kumbaga hindi na masyadong pinapansin tong face validity, but it pertains on the logistic aspects of the test. So sometimes kasi the face validity is not on the part of the test administrator, but it is on the end of the test user. So when you talk about face validity, so it talks about on how the test appears to measure to the person being tested, or how the test appears to measure what it intends to measure. Yun po. So, kung paano, yung pagbasa mo pa lang sa mga items, alam mo that the test itself appears to measure anxiety, the test itself appears to measure personality, So that's what they call a face validity. Okay? So if the test is lacking of face validity, it might affect the test user because there will be no motivation, there will be having no confidence at all to perceive that the test is effective to them. For the test to be perceived that it will be measuring what it ought to measure. Nawawala yung parang effectiveness. So, ibig sabihin, unmotivated yung mga test taker to take the test because they feel that the test will be useless. Okay po. So that's part of it. Ano. Then it also entails yung mga, yun yan, sinasabi ko sa inyo, yung logistics, the font color, the font size, yun. Doon po pumapasok yun sa face validity that the test will be easily discriminated, that the test will be easily understood. Okay, so it is part of the so-called face validity. Di ba parang yung mga, halimbawa nagkita kayo ng exam na puro exam lang talaga, tatama rin na kayong basahin. Tama, mali?
Tama po.
Tama po.
Anong naiisip nyo if you will be receiving a 60-item identification test?
Ang sakit sa ulo, sir.
Sakit sa ulo.
Wala nang naiisip, sir. Nakakawindang, sir.
Yes,
Wala akong
Mr.
maisip, sir.
Yes, Miss Derder, ano yun?
Wala nang maisip, sir. Pagka may 60-item test na fill in the...
Di ba? Pero kung nakita nyo yung test, di ba, that, parang di ba, yung mga estudyante gaya nyo, nakita nyo yung test, ay, okay, may multiple choice naman, may multiple choice, may true or false. Parang, alam nyo yun, nabubuhayan kayo somehow na, okay, baka sakaling, kung hindi ko man masagot itong 1 to 15 na identification, makabawi man lang ako sa multiple choice or, di ba, mga ganun, or true or false. So, kumbaga, it has an effect, So, that is what we call a face validity. That it will give the motivation to the student or to the test taker na nakakasunod kayo.
Opo.
Tapos yung pagdating ng Google form sa inyo, unang tanong pa lang, feeling nyo babagsak na agad kayo.
Relate, sir.
Opo.
O, diba? Yung parang demotivated na kayo, unang tanong pa lang, hindi na ako papasa. O,
Parang wala sa module, sir.
Wala sa module. Are you pertaining to me, Miss Kasipeng?
Hindi po, sir, sa iba.
Are you saying na nagpapa-exam ako nung wala sa module?
Hindi, sir. Yung iba lang, sir.
No! Ayan, even the module itself, di ba? Pag nakita niyo na masyadong, yung module ko, aminado ako, it's quite texty. Bihira ako maglagay ng mga figures, Kasi nga, that's how psych assessment should go, Talaga naman, even the book naman ng psych assessment, kung titingnan nyo, puro word, Wala nga naman lagyan ko yan ng mga kung ano-ano, di ba? So, kasi it's purely discussion. So, yung mga ganun po, it has an effect on the part of the test taker din. Kaya nga 'di ba, parang ang ruling daw pag naglagay ka ng items, yung number 1 dapat madali to boost the morale of to boost the morale of the test taker. But in the Google form kasi, since everything is shuffled, pagdating sa napunta agad sa yung demotivated ka kasi kaka-break nyo lang ng jowa mo, Tapos unang tanong, alas 7 klase, hindi mo na agad masagot. Demotivated ka na. So, yung mga ganon. Are you following?
Opo, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wow, nakikinig talaga si Regen. Okay, moving on is content validity. Okay, so when we talk about content validity, so it describes a judgment of how adequately a test sample's behavior representative of the universe of behavior that the test was designed to sample. Okay, so it talks, when we talk about content validity, so it has something to do on how the test will be measuring the behavior you intend to measure. Are all the items of the test is a measure of that particular behavior. Okay. Dito pumapasok yung tinatawag nating paggamit ng test blueprint. When you are doing a content validity, test blueprint will be your point of reference or the table of specifications. Why? Because this will give you the information about the test. Diba? It will give you an information about how you're going to do the organization of the test and the coverage. Let us say you identify that you need to make, for example, psych assessment. Let us say that nakita nyo naman yun, di ba? I have sample TOS there in the presentation that I sent to you. Di ba makikita nyo then that I need to make 20, in the 60 item test for midterm, I need to make 10 items coming from chapter module 4, 20 items for module 5, 20 items for module 6, and 10 items for module 7. So that's how it should go. Titingnan mo ngayon, if you're doing content validity, you will be now referring on the TOS to see if all this na-reach ko ba yung required na 20 items ko coming from the reliability module. Na-reach ba yung 20 items coming from the validity module. Tapos iisa-isahin mo yon, yung 20 items for reliability are all these items a measure of reliability. Are all these items in the spiral progression that there are items on the EC, for example, in the knowledge part, are there also items for the process and items for understanding level of the test? So yung ganun po, that's the purpose of the content validity. If you are doing now a scale, for example, a psychosocial adjustment scale, and this is a multi-faceted construct. So, ano magiging, titingnan mo doon? Yung mga domains, yung mga possible domains, That's why when you are doing a content validity measure, diba, kailangan knowledgeable ka about dun sa test na yon. Knowledgeable ka about sa dapat na content nun. Otherwise, kung hindi, mahihirapan ka to determine the content validity. Kaya nga po, yun yung tulong na when you are standardizing or developing a test, you will not just settle down on the test development, but you will do some research, like identifying the different domains or different factors that used to affect such and such. Let us say, self-esteem. Baka kasi yung pagkakaunawa natin sa self-esteem it's no longer acceptable in current trends, So you need to find current literature pertaining to self-esteem. Baka akala natin yung okay pa rin yon pero hindi na pala. Diba? Behavior is dynamic. It's ever-changing. So therefore, we need to update ourselves based on the understanding of the behavior. Hindi tayo pwedeng mag-rely lang sa kung ano yung alam natin at kung ano lang yung natutunan natin. Specifically, when you are into psych assessment, it's very important that you are updating yourselves from time to time about the trends and issues. Diba? So, ganun po, baka akala natin healthy behavior pa siya, hindi na pala. Diba? Yung, gaya na, diba, when the term learned helplessness used to surface out, akala nung mga tao, it's just a normal behavior na part siya ng conditioning, na kumbaga parang naging katanggap-tanggap na sa mga tao. Halimbawa, yung mga tao na mahirap, or those who are living in the poverty, na kumbaga, since they are adjusted already in the situation, then it's okay for them, diba? Pero until such time that this term learned helplessness has been coined, okay, na um, akala nila okay okay lang yung ganun situation, but it has a negative effect. Kaya nauso yung term na learned helplessness. Kasi if we're going to look into the point of view of positive psychology, then there should no learned helplessness. Dahil nga nasanay sila na walang tumutulong sa kanila, nasanay sila na hindi nila tinutulungan ang sarili nila, they've been conditioned. Diba? They have been conditioned already by the situation. And it's now the so-called learned helplessness. And it's not good. It's not psychological. It's not an indicator of a psychological well-being. So, yung mga ganon, we should be aware of that. Kasi when you are developing tests, and you are dealing with the content validity, this is something that you should know. Am I clear? Okay. Next is, moving on, is the quantification of content validity. Okay, so how are we going to quantify the content validity? Kasi kung iisipin natin, it's like an abstract thing, but how can we quantify all these things? So the measurement of content validity is important in employment testing. Okay? So our tests used to hire and promote people, so on and so forth, and scrutinize for their relevance to the job. Okay, so when you are, some of you will become a human resource, then you will be human resource personnel or human resource staff, manager, or whatever, testing is very important, or assessment is very important in the industrial field. From the selection up to the appraisal of the employee, testing is there. When you develop your own indigenous or so-called indigenous performance appraisal or performance management system, you need to ensure its content validity, that it will be measuring the amount of job or the requirement of the job, the competencies needed for that job or for that particular position. Otherwise, kung mali yung content mo or yung expected output mo for that particular job, then the appraisal system is wrong. It's not standardized. Tapos makikita mo, ay bakit hindi naman siya pala magaling doon sa position na yun, then you will be terminating? No. Diba? In assessment, we should not be, in industrial field, we should not be using performance management as a way to terminate an employee. It's not that. It's not the purpose of performance management. Diba? So, paano natin masasabi that once we assess or appraise our employees, the measure or the instrument that we use to appraise them is valid or not? In that case, we will be doing now a content validity measure in order for us to gauge the performance based on the expected output or the expectation from the job. And that's what content validity is all about. What is the expectation? And that's the content of the appraisal management tool that you will be using. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Opo, sir.
Okay. Then, under the content validity measure, we have this tool, which was developed by Loshi, which was developed by C.H. Loshi, to it's gauging agreement among raters or judges regarding how essential a particular item is or a particular thing is in the test, di ba? Loshi proposed that each rater respond to the following questions for each item. Like, for example, this is something about appraisal na, is the skill of knowledge measured by this item considered to be one? Is it essential? B, useful but not essential? Or three, not necessary to perform to the performance of the job? Same goes when you are developing a scale. If you will be doing this Loshian or the content validity ratio, let us say you have 15 items or 30 items measure of extraversion, introversion, or extraversion of an individual. Ano? So, and then you get 15 psychometricians to evaluate the test. Each psychometrician will be doing an assessment or an analysis of each item, whether they're going to identify, for example, item number one. Bawa si item number one, ni-rate siya ni Psychomet 1 na essential, Psychomet 2 essential, 3 essential, 4, 5, 6, 7 essential. Psychometrician 8 rated it as is not essential. Psychometrician 9 rated it as not essential, so on and so forth. So, titingnan mo, per item yon. And then, after that, you will now be computing for the so-called content validity ratio or the CVR. Okay, in the CVR, N is the number of panelists indicating essential, and N is the total number of the panelists. Let us say, you will be doing that per item, ano? Let us say for item number one, out of the 15 psychometricians as your judges, ano, let us say that nine mentioned that the item number one is essential. So let us compute, ano? So 9, then how many is the our judges? How many psychometricians do we have?
10.
No.
Ay.
10 ba? 15, di ba? So that's 15 minus 2. No, sorry. That's 15 divided by 2. So that's 7.5. Ano? So, ilan yung nagsabi na essential si number 1?
9.
9. So 9 minus 7.5 is 1.5. Divided by 15 over 2 divided by 7.5. So that's 0.20. So, ibig sabihin, positive CVR yon. So, ibig sabihin, okay yung tanong na yon. For a while lang.
Yeah, yeah. Tú, nadie como tú, no hay un sustituto. Pensé sa page ng bayan. Sa page ng bayan. Anong magagawa? Anong magagawa?
Okay. So, yun po yung sinasabi natin na content validity ratio. We need to compute for this, ano. So, we have three types of content validity ratio. We have the negative CBR, okay, the zero and the positive CBR. Pag nag-negative kasi, mas mababa sa kalahati, yung nagsabi na essential yung tanong na yon. So, in that case, ano, per, um, that item, ano, in reference to content, ano, hindi siya pang-measure nung construct na yon. If half says that it is essential and half says that it is not essential, then you will be obtaining a zero CBR. Nangyayari to if the number of panelists is even in number. Remember guys, when you are getting a rater, a judge, judges, or basta anyone who will be rating, as much as possible, you will be getting an odd number of rater or judges, so that there will be someone to break the tie. Kasi otherwise, you will be getting a zero CVR. Ang hirap mag-decide nun na, no? Yung kalahati nagsabi ng essential, kalahati nagsabi ng hindi. Paano mo de-determine? Tatanggalin ko ba yung item na yun o hindi? Diba? What do you think?
Opo, sir.
Kaya kung kukuha kayo ng judges to evaluate something, you need to ensure that they are odd in numbers. Next is a positive CBR. So it's more than half, but not all the panelists indicate essential. Okay? The CBR ranges between 0.00 to 0.99. Suppose that 9 of the 10 indicated essential. So then, mataas yung magiging CBR niya. Kung halimbawa, 9 out of 10, gaya nito, that's 0.80. Ano? So, in validating a test, the content validity ratio is calculated for each item, as I mentioned a while ago. Loesche recommended that if the amount of agreement observed is more than 5% likely to occur by chance, then the item should be eliminated. Kung mababa yung chances that that particular item will be agreed to be essential, so it means that you must be removing that. Kung nakikita mo na may pumipili ng essential, may pumipiling hindi, ganun. So, again, you will be removing that. Ano? So, may tanong regarding content validity?
So far pa wala po, sir.
So far. Okay. The culture and the relativity of content validity. Okay, as I mentioned, again, culture has something to do with this, with the test validity. It's very important. The influence of the culture is reflecting on the way we are developing the test. And when we are doing the content validity, culture must be included. Ano, kasi pag hindi, magkakaroon tayo ng problema. No? Remember that each person is a multicultural person. We vary from one another. Like even when you're developing the test, then you are now doing the norm. Ano? So, i-include mo yon. Like for example, the test is entitled, or the test should be given in the general population, but then you included sex as a norm. You should be developing norms for women and norms for men. Like for example, the extraversion. when we are going to look into the computation using the scoring and interpretation of the 16PF or the 16 personality factor by Cattell, the amount of extroversion of women is quite higher than the amount of extroversion of men. So what do I mean, ano? Yung medyo mataas ng konti, yung extraversion ng babae kesa sa lalaki. And other factors, may mga factors kasi doon na, or most of the factors are not the same. Kaya nga ang ginawa ni Cattell doon, there is a separate norming for men and separate norming for women. And meron din siyang combined. Ano po yung purpose ng combined? I think I mentioned this before. Let us say, you as a human resource officer, and then you are looking for a staff, and then may aplikante kang lalaki, may aplikante kang babae. Syempre, pag yung sa babae, ang titingnan mo yung norm ng babae. Pero kung lalaki yon, ang titingnan mo norm ng lalaki, ano? Pero paano yon kung ang mga aplikante mo is a mix in terms of sex, may lalaki, may babae, may lalaki, may babae. So, rather than to look on their specific norm, you look on the combined norm. Yun po yung ating titingnan. Kasi mas accurate yan. So, ibig sabihin, you are comparing them on the combined norm rather than to compare them on their specific norm. Kung babae sa babae, kung lalaki sa lalaki. Mas maganda dun sa combined norm na lang natin siya tingnan. But if all your applicants are women, so you look on the women norm. Kung ang lahat ng aplikante mo ay lalaki, you look at the men's norm. Yun po yung sinasabi natin dito. Okay? Lalo na like what test is that the differential aptitude test differs kasi parang sa DAT like for example in the mechanical ability, when it comes to mechanical ability, the norm of men is higher than women. Ibig sabihin, the expectations that a man can perform better in the mechanical job is higher than for women. Diba? But when it comes to clerical job, women are expected to have a high level as compared to the men. Parang ganun po yun, ano. That's why pag ang applicant mo is both male and female on a single position, rather than to look under specific norm, you look on the combined norm. So in that case, we are able to address the cultural boundary, and of course, we're trying to make the interpretation and scoring process culture specific. Am I clear on that, guys?
Yes po.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sir.
Hopefully, Okay, moving on is the criterion-related validity. So, when we talk about criterion-related validity, it is now a judgment on how adequately a test score can be used to infer an individual's most probable standing on some measure of interest. Just in case you are doing an interest test, the interest then will serve as your criterion. We have two types of criterion-related validity. We have the so-called concurrent and the predictive validity. When you see concurrent, it's an index of the degree to which a test score is related into some criterion measure obtained at the same time, currently or concurrently being done. So the assessment is done simultaneously, concurrent, Then, ang predictive naman is an index of the degree to which a test score predicts some criterion measure. Let us say, for example, we administer an ability test or an aptitude test to an individual who is applying for the course of accountancy, for example. So you will be looking now into the numerical and the numerical and the analytical ability. If the student applicant has a high numerical and analytical ability, this predicts that the person is, or the student is fitted to take accountancy. So the result of the ability test is a predictor to the criterion. And which one is the criterion? The course or the program that the person is choosing. That's predictive validity. Ang concurrent naman is that if the if you will be getting the result, the analytical and the numerical ability, and compare it to the grades or to the jiwa of the student na graduate ng ABM, for example, and you look into their subjects like the fundamentals of accounting and business and management, mga business finance, so on and so forth, nakita mo na mataas, that's no concurrent. Sabay mo siyang tiningnan. Nakukuha niyo po yung pagkakaiba nung dalawa. Hello po.
Yes po.
Yung predictive, pang-predict siya. Yung concurrent sabay. Tinitingnan mo, you're just making a comparison on two predictors or on two criteria, dalawang sabay, that's concurrent. Ngayon, pag gagamitin mo naman yung test result to predict a certain behavior, that's predictive na. Am I clear?
Yes po.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what is a criterion? Okay. It is a standard against which a test or test score is evaluated. Where are we going to compare the test? And that's the criterion. Okay? So, an adequate criterion is relevant. It means that it is pertinent or applicable to the matter at hand. An adequate criterion measure must also be valid for the purpose for which it is being used. For example, if one test or X is being used as the criterion to validate a second test, then the evidence should exist that the test X is valid. It means that when we are developing a criterion measure, then it must also valid. So let us say, sinabi nung, ano ba, di ba, sabi nanay, ang galing ng anak ko sa math, kaya gusto ko siyang mag-engineering. Tingnan mo yung grades niya, ang tataas. Almost, siya, 98, 99 siya sa math. Kaya pinag-exam niya yung anak niya ng college entrance exam for engineering. At say sa Mapua, for a while lang. Guys, for a while lang. Atawag lang ako ni Dr. C. Thank you.